In this training module, you'll be learning about the live 2D map and how it can help you understand where you are, where your objective is, and how you can change the path of the train to get to the right place. Under normal circumstances, the driver has little, if anything, to do with where a train is going. It's all handled centrally by a signalling center or dispatcher. Within yards and depots, however, you will find that these are often managed by the crew of the train directly. That means you. You can tell whether a junction is manual or automatic by looking at it. If it has no big lever, then it's automatic and you can't influence it. If it does, then interacting with that lever will change the junction. For this module, you'll take this class 323 from the siding here next to the main loops and set all the junctions yourself to direct the train to the switch lines, and then change ends and repeat the process to bring the train into the depot. Your destination has been set over in the switch lines on the far west of the training center. Use the map to follow the path from the train to the destination and change all the junctions you need to get there. If you make a mistake and go the wrong way, you can go back and try to correct it. If you're not ready for that, just restart the module and try again. You've made it to the first destination. Go ahead and change ends in the train and you can try one more time for practice. Once again, use the map to adjust the junctions between your train and the destination, where the black lines on the 2D map aren't aligned with the blue path, change the junction. When you're ready, get moving. That concludes this module. If you wish to replay it, you can come back to it at any time via the training center. In this training module, you'll practice going between the BR146.2 locomotive at one end of the train and the cab car at the other. All the junctions are being taken care of for you by another team member, allowing you to focus on driving. You're starting here in a siding near the main loop. Get started by climbing in. Insert the reverser handle and set the reverser to forward. Set the headlights to bright, and on the back wheel set the signal lights to headlights. Release the brakes and apply power to get moving towards the marker. stop anywhere here by applying the brakes. It's time to get the locomotive cab shut down. Move the train brake handle to the full service position.
Störung.
Set the reverser to off and remove the reverser handle. That will deactivate the cab. On the back wall, change the signal lights to tail lights so that the locomotive shows red lights now that it's at the rear of the train. With the cab shut down, you can move to the other end of the train. Exit the cab and walk along the side of the train to the cab car. Don't forget to close the door before you leave. Open a passenger door on the cab car to get in and make your way to the cab and sit in the driver's seat. You now need to get this cab set up. Start by turning the brake key to activate the brakes. Insert the reverser handle and set the reverser to forward. Set the headlights to high beams and on the back wall set the signal lights to headlights. Check if there are any doors open, and if so, close them. You're good to go. Release the brakes, apply the power, and take the train out. You're headed out onto the main line and will be stopping at the main station on the loop. That concludes this module. If you wish to replay it, you can come back to it at any time via the training center. In this training module, you're going to learn how the German AFB cruise control system works. Many German trains use this type of cruise control, and much of the fundamentals you learn here will apply to other trains that have some equivalent form of cruise control. It's important to note that there are fundamentally two types of cruise control. One is an active system like AFB, which will manage your speed positively using throttle and brake as needed. The other is a speed set system, which is useful for setting a maximum speed. Speed set could usually maintain your speed, but can't reduce it as easily as a system like AFB. For this exercise, you'll be doing 2 laps of the main loop here at the training center. The first time around, you'll be learning how to set up AFB and use it from standstill. The second time, you'll learn how to enable AFB while your train is already running. Set up the train, but don't start moving yet.
Störung. Störung.
Turn the AFB system on.
AFB. AFB.
You can now set the
AFB.
target cruise speed using the AFB lever. Set it to 40 km per hour for now. Release the brakes and apply power. As the train accelerates, you can apply more power as needed. The train has reached its cruise target and has cut power. It will now manage the speed as needed automatically. You can leave the power handle with the power applied, and this grants the amount of power available for AFB to use. Increase the AFB lever to 80 km per hour and watch the train accelerate to the new target. Now decrease the AFB lever back to 40 kilometers per hour and see the train will manage itself back to 40 kilometers per hour. You're coming back to the platform, so set the throttle to off and get on the brakes as needed to come to a stop somewhere in the station. Getting AFB running while stationary is quite straightforward, but sometimes you may want to activate it while you're on the move without having to stop. Set the AFB lever to off and turn the AFB switch to off so that we can try that exercise next.
AFB, AFB, AFB.
Now you're doing about 40 kilometers per hour, it's time to get the AFB system enabled. First, completely cup the power handle to off. Next, set the AFB to the maximum position. Don't worry, it can't do anything because the power handle is set to off. activate the AFB switch to turn AFB on.
AFB. AFB.
Move the AFB lever to
AFB.
80 kilometers per hour so it can speed up. Finally, apply some power. Notice that we're now accelerating, and if all has gone well, you'll see that power cut out around the 80 kilometers per hour mark as AFB is managing your speed. Pretend there's a signal restriction coming up ahead and you need to apply the brakes. Use the brake lever to bring the train down to around 40 kilometers per hour and then release the brakes. Notice how even though the cruise control is set to 80 kilometers per hour still and power is applied, it's still not accelerating. This is because the brake application caused a throttle lockout. To reset it, you need to put the power back to off and then reapply it. Perfect. You're accelerating back up to 80 kilometers per hour. You're headed back to the station again, so bring the throttle to off and use your brakes to bring the train to a stop in the platform. is important to remember that a cruise control system like this is no substitute for the driver paying attention and remaining responsible for the train. Cruise control systems also cannot be relied upon to slow the train at an appropriate rate when approaching red signals or speed reductions, so you should be ready to use your brakes as needed. That concludes this module. If you wish to replay it, you can come back to it at any time via the training center. In this training module, you'll be learning the basics of operating a steam locomotive. You'll be driving this Stanier Class 8F steam locomotive. When you're ready, climb onto the footplate. Sit in the driver's position. Start by preparing the locomotive for departure. The reverser determines the direction of travel and how much steam is consumed as the locomotive moves. Set the reverser to full forward position. This locomotive has a combination brake that controls both steam and vacuum brakes. Steam brakes will apply on just the locomotive. Vacuum brakes will apply to the rest of the train so long as it is equipped with vacuum brakes. The brakes are released when a vacuum is created. The driver can use the brake handle to destroy the vacuum, which will start to apply the brakes. To create a vacuum, you should use the ejectors. The small ejectors should be left open when the train is running. The large ejector can be used to more quickly increase the vacuum after coupling or heavy braking. When the locomotive has been left standing, you'll want to open the cylinder. Move the combination brake to the release position and then use the large ejector as needed to get... The regulator acts like the throttle control for steam locomotives. It controls how much steam is delivered into the cylinders. Applying too much power too early can cause wheel slip, so increase it slowly. After a few wheel rotations, the cylinder should have been blown clear by the steam jetting out of them, so you can close the cylinder cocks to get full power in the cylinders and prevent further steam waste. We're starting to pick up speed. Move the reverser towards forwards 20. To drive a steam locomotive, you'll mostly be managing the regulator and the reverser. The regulator puts steam into the cylinders. The reverser uses that steam to power the pistons and manage the power you get from the locomotive. As you accelerate, you'll want to gradually pull the reverser back towards the middle, usually no less than 15%, in order to make the most efficient use of steam and get the most out of the locomotive. Practice and experience will show you how much to adjust the various controls by. The way you manage the controls will vary depending on the type of steam locomotive and the weight of the train behind it, but the fundamental process of what each control does is the same. Use the combination brake to apply some braking force and bring the train to a stop. That concludes this module. If you wish to replay it, you can come back at any time via the training center.